Sex is something that, yes, me and my friends have experienced and experimented with.
I want to have sex.
I'm not gonna be interested in that person. I'm just like attracted to their body or stuff.
Most everybody in high school is having sex before they're married.
You know, I think it's real easy sometimes to look at life like it's just this great ride, or it's just this awesome game and you're out to have as much fun as you can.
You see so much and hear so much about sex almost everywhere you go.
I've heard a lot about condoms and AIDS and birth control pills.
The type of thing all over the news, all over magazines, that sort of thing you see everywhere.
Condoms are a good message, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna have sex anyway, why not use a condom?
You see sex everywhere. I mean, in the movies and on advertisements.
You have to do it.
I mean, but like on advertisements, they show a girl with like a thin bikini, a G-string and everything, and like, I mean, because especially like the beer commercials and everything, they show if you drink this kind of beer that you're gonna get, have all these girls and stuff, but really you just turn into a screwball and
barf all night.
Yeah.
Get a hangover
and get fat.
If I go out with somebody, it's not like, you know, I'm not gonna be interested in that person. I'm just like attracted to their body or stuff. And that's what I want right now.
I think most everybody in high school is having sex before they're married because they don't think of it as a big deal as people did before us.
But then every place you go, every movie you see, everywhere, it promotes sex.
Well, I think that by the media promoting condoms, they're actually letting the majority of the people have more sex. They're actually promoting sex at the same time as protection.
Everybody's doing it, even though, I mean, I don't find nothing wrong with it. I don't think anybody else does.
Condoms and stuff. I hear more about safe sex and abstinence.
What does abstinence mean?
I'm not sure what abstinence means.
I'm not sure what abstinence
It's something that comes up, but it's something that I never bother to find out the meaning.
Is it something about sex?
Abstinence. I'm not clear on that word yet.
Is that like a nun?
No, abstinence is not being taught at all on this campus, or I'm pretty sure I would have heard of it.
I don't think condoms are the best message for safe sex. Of course, abstinence is going to be, but it's better than nothing, so you might as well try it, I guess.
And just protect yourself with condoms or birth control pills or anything like that.
Well, you use protection.
I know most of my friends have sex, and abstinence is not the answer. I think they should protect themselves, both the guy and the girl.
Say you're in 11th grade, you've known this girl for 2 years, and you know everything about her, and you know that she doesn't have any diseases, or so she tells you, and nothing serious. Nobody talks about her having any diseases, and she wants to do it, and you want to do it, and you wouldn't do it. You're in 11th grade. You can do it. I mean, I might sound like kind of a weirdo, but I mean, I would do it. I mean, if I knew all that stuff, I would do it in 8th grade or even before. I mean, cause, I mean, well, cause if you know nothing can go wrong, and like, well, she might get pregnant, but
yeah, I know. Then you're stuck with a kid for the rest of your life.
Well, yeah.
How are you gonna make money?
If you want, you use protection. You use
protection. Let's say
use a condom and a diaphragm.
It's not always sure things. Why take the risk?
A condom and a diaphragm. See, a condom separate and a diaphragm. Together we fall, but united we stand.
You have to make decisions when you see the whole picture. You know, as good as it feels or as good as it seems, you gotta think about the whole picture before you make a decision.
Nobody loses, everybody wins!
That's not the whole story, because just behind all that what seems to be fun and excitement is also what ends up being a lot of pain.
The games aren't very much fun when you lose, you know, when you get hurt.
I was friends with this guy, and we were friends. We were like best friends. And then one day, he kind of felt that I liked him. So I went upstairs, and then he asked me if I wanted him to stop, and I said no. And then maybe a year or two later, we had my son. I lost my virginity at 12. Well, my ex-boyfriend does not share in taking care of my child. He wants to, but right now he's incarcerated. And well, I have a picture of him. But he wants to, but he's not really doing anything for himself, so I don't see how he can do anything for my child.
There's not only the risk of teenage pregnancy or the risk of disease, but there's the risk of a broken heart. And there just isn't any protection that can protect you from a broken heart.
I mean, there's a lot I want to do, and like college, I wanted to go away for college, but if I do that, I can't take him with me. It just, it's holding me back from a lot of things I wanted to do.
Let me tell you what sex is, because a lot of y'all not saying something because either you're really not sure what it is, or you're embarrassed to say what you think it is. If I had a rose in here and I passed the rose around, each one of you took a rose petal off. For one, it would never make it to the back. But the rose wouldn't be anything left. And what happens is when you sleep with somebody, you give a part of yourself away. You give it away. And when you as teenagers go, I'm gonna sleep with this guy or this girl, and you keep doing it, you're just giving your heart away. And by the time you get to college, or by the time you're a senior, you don't even care about yourself because you have nothing to care about. And you say, well, I might as well just do it because it doesn't matter. It does matter because you are a real person. Love desires to please someone else at the expense of self because love wants to give. But lust wants to please self at the expense of somebody else because lust wants to get.
If I had AIDS, would I tell my partner? I don't think I would.
Well, I think even if he had a condom and HIV, I probably would sleep with him. If I really cared about him like I do my boyfriend, I think I would. I wouldn't mind getting it with him as long as we died together.
There's so many things that can go wrong.
What? But life is short. I mean,
life is short, but if you get AIDS, it's even shorter.
It does scare me because there are so many risks with having sex.
Kids are viewing sex with a little more fear now because of the fear of AIDS and other diseases. It's not just a thing for other people. It's actually here at school and other places. It's touched home.
The whole safe sex thing nowadays, they're like a carnival game, like the basketball free throw or the baseball toss. They're just a jip. They're just a jip.
The games aren't very much fun when you lose.
Just a few years ago, there were only 5 sexually transmitted diseases that you had to worry about. Now there are over 20. 20 years ago, they started the safe sex campaign. They've been pushing contraceptives and condoms and the birth control pill. But since that time, pregnancy has increased, the number of abortions has increased, the number of sexual active teenagers has increased, and all this safe sex campaign and all this use of condoms and the push to have safe sex is not working. More people are catching diseases, more people are getting pregnant. So how can you be safe? My brother said a condom. Let me tell you something about a condom. I got a condom right here. We're not talking about babies, even though that's going to happen. We're not talking about abortion, even though that happens. We're talking about dying. We're talking about pain. We're talking about suffering. We're talking about your whole life ending in a terrible way.
Some people say, well, if you just use a condom, you'll be protected from sickness and death. Well, that's a false sense of security for this reason. Condoms fail 15% of the time when attempting to prevent pregnancy, although a woman can only get pregnant a few days a month. But you can contract a disease 31 days a month. How high do you think the condom failure rate is in preventing diseases that you can get 365 days a year? See, just one slippage, one breakage, one failure to wear the thing properly, and you're nailed. Right now, according to the United States Centers for Disease Control, 43 million Americans have an incurable sexually transmitted virus. They'll suffer from it for the rest of their lives, and some are going to die of it. That's 1 in 5, and the number is rising every year.
One thing that we're not told is that one attack of chlamydia, one case of chlamydia, gives you a 30% greater chance of having infertility. So you can't afford to experiment. We're seeing so many more women flocking to the infertility doctors and suffering the consequences of a sexually transmitted disease that they thought they had cured years earlier. But the scars are still there, both emotionally and in their bodies.
I even have ladies that come into me and I'll talk to them about the risks of sexually transmitted diseases, and they'll say, "Oh, doctor, you're being silly. He's not that kind of a guy. You know, he's a real clean-cut, nice, smart guy. He would never have anything like that." Sexually transmitted diseases are really common. There's people all around this city who are infected. You can't see it by looking at their faces or the clothes they dress, but they are very common. As I said, I see them every day. The second thing is you can't recognize, no matter how nice a person is or how nice they dress or how fancy they talk or how wealthy their background is or how educated they are, you can't tell who's infected and who's not.
Okay, do you think you could be safe using a condom?
Yeah.
You do? Still?
I mean, even though you told me that, I prefer having a condom than nothing.
Okay, let me ask you, Memo. You believe that there's always a risk with a condom?
Yes.
You believe that you have a risk of getting a girl pregnant?
Yeah.
You believe you have a risk of getting over 20 venereal diseases?
Yes.
And yet you think an orgasm is worth that risk?
No, but you can have a test and test the girl first.
Oh, so you're gonna go test the girl?
Yes.
So the girl got tested, you got tested, she's a virgin, you're a virgin, right? Or let's say you were.
I am.
And you sleep with her.
Oh, God.
Okay? You're still not gonna get pregnant.
Oh, yeah, I am.
Oh, you're still gonna get pregnant?
I mean, I'm not. But geez, you might.
Let me ask you a question, Memo. Is it worth the risk?
No.
It scares me about getting AIDS.
Yeah, I mean, you can have sex and you can die.
Specifically, the students that I'm working with do not look at AIDS as something that would happen to them. And the students, the young people who are engaging in risky activities like sexual practices, if they do contract AIDS here while they're at Roosevelt High School or at some other high school level, most likely will not show signs of that until after they are well out of college.
The reason why I keep my pants on is because it's a joke. It doesn't do anything for you. I thought if you had a lot of girls, it'd make you feel like a man. Doesn't work.
What I've heard about safe sex is that it's not really working anymore. Condoms are breaking, birth control is failing, and many kids and young people are just dying.
Do you know there's not one orgasm in this world that's worth dying for?
My son and his wife were married for 4 years before they found out that they all had AIDS. My grandson was around 3 at the time. Evidently, one of them had to have gotten it before they were married. No one thought, because they were a heterosexual family, that it could be anything like AIDS. In fact, when they went to the clinic, they were assured that they couldn't have AIDS, but they gave them the test anyway. My son had cancer of the liver and of his pelvic bones and in his bone marrow. And she developed cancer of the brain, and there was large lumps all over her head. And She was bleeding from the stomach. It was rather a horrible death for both of them. My son was a very brave person. It's a little hard for me to talk about it. He said, "Mom, they've just found out I have AIDS." And all I could say was, "My God." And he said, "I thought I would live to be at least 60. And then he asked me to make certain that he didn't have much pain. James has suffered. He's had 3 central lines into the large artery that goes into his heart. He's had 2 tubes, NG tubes, put into his stomach. And he's had a gastrostomy. And he's been in a lot of pain. That's the worst, the pain. If you possibly can abstain, do not have sex before marriage. I say this because I know what it means if you should get AIDS. I've gone through all the horrors, all the worst things that I could ever imagine. It isn't worth it. A few moments of pleasure and a lifetime of regret. And those just aren't empty words.
A young life is far too great to throw away on one sexual experience or a high or whatever. I mean, it's far too great. The safe sex condom campaign is simply a matter of continuing in promiscuity and continuing in sexual behavior that that really is not safe.
As they were wheeling him in from the ambulance, our eyes made contact, and I'd never seen such serious fear on anybody. And he had AIDS. He was about 19 years old, and 6 weeks later, I put him downstairs in the morgue. And I remember as I shut the door and I walked away, I thought, what in the world could we have told you 4 or 5 years ago to do different?
The way I felt with being alone and dumped and 15 and pregnant, to me it wasn't important to worry about him leaving me. It was important to take care of my child and to think of what I'm gonna do for my life and the future of my child's life.
I have a girl pregnant 4 months, and I think, it's like, I don't know, like, I think about how am I gonna support it, This is gonna be like, it's gonna be hard for me to support that baby.
I had an abortion without anesthesia. I had an abortion and paid for it with money that was stolen from my job.
When I got pregnant, I had dated this guy for 1.5 years. I thought, of course he'll marry me. We're in love. We've dated 1.5 years. He took off.
Knowing that I'm not going to live to see the fulfillment of the hopes and the dreams that I've had is pretty hard to take. There's a lot of times that I wake up and I cry in the middle of the night. I wake up crying. And there's a lot of times that I just cry even during the day, knowing that I'm just gonna die, and I'm gonna die a pretty painful and horrible death.
What a tragedy that is, and it's all so unnecessary. You've probably heard it said that we're all at risk for AIDS and that anyone can contract HIV. See, that's simply not true. There's an effort out there today to make it appear that everyone is equally likely to come down with this disease. But there are certain behaviors that spread HIV, primarily vaginal and anal intercourse and the sharing of dirty needles and drug abuse. Now, if you avoid those behaviors and you remain sexually abstinent before marriage, and then you marry an uninfected person and you stay faithful for life, you can reduce the risk of AIDS to almost zero. You see, abstinence, which is a choice, it's a choice to refrain from sexual activity, is in fact the only truly protected sex.
After all the diseases that are out there, all the pregnancy, the risk of broken heart, the risk of guilt, depression, the risk of a bad reputation, is it worth the risk?
Not really. It's not worth the risk. Too many negatives.
You know, a lot of our friends will talk to us now, and they're not married, they're single, and they'll say, oh, it's easy for you because you're married, but...
Right, you guys don't have to worry about
Right.
these kinds of things. But you have to remember, too, that it wasn't long ago that I was in high school, that Chelsea was in high school, and we're making the same decisions
We've only been married a year.
that they're making now, and man, am I glad I did.
Even in the area of sex, if you feel like, oh, well, this doesn't, you know, I've already made a bad decision about that, and so, you know, I guess I just have to take my risks. You don't have to.
The terminology that's used today of secondary virginity applies to me because at that point I realized that just having sex did not make me a man.
I believe very strongly that people can start all over again. I don't believe that you can erase some of the scars that happened from, for example, losing your virginity as I did.
I'm gonna stick with not having sex till I'm married.
There's really nothing wrong with not having sex, and I just felt free of all the pressures, and it's a lot easier for me to go through life knowing that I don't have to do anything that anybody else tells me to. I have, I think, a great self-image, and I'm fine with the way I am.
A lot of girls would say no if they just knew how to say no in a way that guys could respect and in a way that guys would understand. I remain abstinent and plan to keep my virginity until I get married so that when I get to the altar, I can wear a white dress and mean it, number one. And number two, I could say to my husband, I loved you before I ever knew you, and I saved myself just for you.
And I hear a lot more of, cool, you're a virgin, you know, and it's a lot more positive than it used to be.
I think a guy that is a virgin, you know, is cool, you know.
Love is not having to have sex. Love is not jumping into bed.
I'm glad that we waited. I'm very glad that we waited. There's an element of trust there that he's mine and he's not with anybody else.
I want to save myself for my wife because that's what I believe. And I just, you know, it has nothing to do with being a television star. It's about respecting yourself and loving yourself enough and wanting to love the person that you know later on in life, God willing, that I find.
For the safe sex message to go out the way it is, I think is a disgrace. I really do.
I think we're living in a time when it's the live in the moment, live for the moment age. And I think that we are not aware and don't want to be aware of consequences of what we choose.
I've always been taught that you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You know, if you're hanging with friends that are sleeping around and doing things that they haven't been doing, sneaking out the house to be with their girlfriends, their boyfriends late at night, then sooner or later you're going to be influenced.
And I just look at the Magic Johnson case. Magic Johnson is trying to tell young people now, it's cool to be a virgin. It's cool, you won't make the same mistake that I did. And unfortunately, the mistake that I made was life-threatening. Don't make the same mistake.
If you have been sexually active in the past, there is time to change. There may be a possibility of a new policy, a secondary virginity policy, now that you have the information about HIV positive, AIDS being transmitted, the failure of the condom rate, about being self-controlled, having your self-dignity back. You can start now. You can become abstinent from this time forward.
God has given us a body that is a temple for the Holy Spirit. God expects us to keep that body pure. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take discipline. And God wants us to keep pure for our husband and wife.
I've found throughout my Christianity that the things that he's laid down for us, the do's and the do-nots, so to speak, are out of his great love for us, because if we pick the things he said to pick and choose them, that the consequences of those things are great, and they'll bless us instead of curse us. So I think that abstinence, that big A word, is is my choice.
I'm glad I waited because, you know, as far as you hear the lines are from a lot of people saying, well, you know, we've got to experiment and, you know, find out if we're compatible sexually. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm quite compatible with my wife, and we've got a great sex life. And I can't imagine you not being compatible if you're with someone that you're supposed to be with for the rest of your life.
I never really understood how it could even be called safe sex. It's like, I mean, growing up in the inner city in Washington, D.C., a lot of my friends engaged in premarital sex and stuff like that. And they have, even now, kids all over the city. And it's like, you know, after so-called safe sex.
Exactly.
It ain't
how
safe,
many,
brother.
How many of my friends have miserable lives right now? They didn't get to pursue their dreams. They didn't get to do the things that we've gotten the opportunities to do because we did abstain and we chose the route of not believing the lie of safe sex.
That's right.
Safe sex isn't safe emotionally either. A man and a woman aren't made up the same way sexually. Sexual confrontation might leave a woman more hurt than a man. And we've got to realize that that's why marriage is so important for a sexual relationship.
But the real reason that God designed marriage and set it up this way to abstain from sex until you are married is for our own protection.
Who loves you more than anyone else in this world? Maybe your mom or your dad or girlfriend or boyfriend? No, it's the God of the Bible. That's who loves you and all of us more than anyone else in this world. And he says that sex is good in the context of marriage.
And I believe in the scriptures that says when a husband shall leave his mother and father and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. I think when you're one flesh, you certainly don't want to be one flesh with dozens of different people. You want to be one flesh with the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, and that is your wife or your husband.
Everybody's talking about safe sex these days, and I'm pretty amazed when I look at the TV and see all the commercials and the things that people are saying about safe sex. I sit there and think, how can these people say that? Because it's not true.
And that's why I can't wait to get married. You?
I can't wait, brother.
Hey,
Lord, yes.
I third the motion.
I had cancer, and ultimately from that cancer, I lost my career as a baseball player, and in the process, lost my left arm. Cancer kills. Fortunately for me, it hasn't taken my life, but it has taken something very precious away. You too are being confronted with that peer pressure to have sex, and I want you to know that I would hope that you would make the right choice in abstaining from that, and hopefully in the process realizing that that abstinence can save your life too.
To me, God knows best. God created all of us. He knows best, and he knows what's best for our life. And I don't mind following my life after him and just saying, go ahead, God. Sure, I won't have sex until the time that you said is you created to be inside of marriage. Okay, I'll wait for that time. If I can do it in the NBA, facing the challenges that I face, I know you can do it where you are.
God created sex, and it's a very natural feeling, a very natural thing, and it was intended to be something incredible and something special and something without boundaries with your husband.
There's more to sex than just, the pleasure and the fun, because when you have sex with somebody, you're giving yourself to them. You're giving something to them you can't get back, no matter how much you want it back. And I think you should just save it for somebody you really care about who cares about you, and that you can trust with what you're giving them, because you're never going to be able to get it back.
And who's the one and only person that could be?
I guess your husband.
And that is the kind of love and sex that is fun and exciting and lasts a lifetime.
It all comes down to each individual making the right choice.